From a school day that can last up to 16 hours to the prohibition of English in some classes, here is what school is like in South Korea. Let's get started. South Korean students are known to be among the best students in the world, and no one can deny it. You only have to see their level in international competitions to understand. Indeed, these young people always want to be among the first, and this in all disciplines, which pushes them to spend most of their time in studies. Sometimes, their school day can last up to 16 hours. Yes, this may scare us in a way, but not the South Korean students who find it quite normal to study from morning to night. Indeed, they spend the whole day at school, then they continue to study in hagwons, private schools where they take extra classes, and this until late at night. They stand in front of their notebooks on desks to fight sleep and stay awake. This way, they are sure to excel in all subjects and reach the required level of performance. But of course, this means lack of sleep, forgetting about leisure time, but also high levels of stress and pressure that can sometimes lead to serious consequences. This is of little importance to these students who have become accustomed to studying for 16 hours and who find happiness in their course books, as long as they are better than their classmates, but also that they please their parents. Because it must be said that in this country, where the school system is rather focused on tests, there is a very tough competition between South Korean students, which starts in middle school but intensifies even more in high school. On the other hand, if these students stay studying until late at night, it is also because their parents want them to. But it is also important to know that because of this hellish pace of study, many of these students have forgotten that they have a life, and many of them have become obsessed with studying and succeeding. Worse than that, they have ended up adopting a pace that is far from healthy. Studying in South Korea is hard work. A few years ago, South Korean students went to school even on Saturdays, which was not really a problem for them as opposed to us. Because let's face it, the idea of getting up early on Saturdays to go to school is not something we like. But for these young South Koreans, things are different because they still want to reach the level of performance they are known for in the world. Except that starting in 2012, the South Korean government eliminated Saturday classes, or at least these classes were only held every other Saturday. Students adapted to this new rhythm, but some of them were still able to go to classes on Saturdays, whether for private lessons or otherwise, because some schools continued to give classes on Saturdays, illegally of course, at the request of parents. As if it wasn't enough to have extra classes early in the morning before school and late in the evening. However, despite the pleasure they may feel in going to class on Saturdays, these poor students forget what it's like to have a good weekend and the joys of a good Saturday sleepover. But hey, these students find happiness in these classes and in their reunion with their peers. In short, nothing can change their minds except maybe later. Nevertheless, it gives them a strange image compared to students in other countries. We can't say it enough. South Korea students are known to be extremely studious. But this term is not enough for them, because what they dream of is to reach the level of perfection that will allow them to enter one of the most prestigious universities in the country. To do so, they have to pass an exam called the Suneung. But what is this? Well, the Suneung, also known as the Academic Aptitude Test, is a very special national exam that includes many subjects such as mathematics, science, social studies, and English. But what makes it special is its difficulty, its long duration of 9 hours, but also all the prestige that is given to it since it is the object of great importance from the state. Imagine that even the national airspace is suspended to commercial flights. That's right, the South Korean Armed Forces make the planes change their trajectories on the day of the Suneung so that the students are not disturbed in the middle of the exam. Even the opening of the public order offices is postponed by 1 hour to ease the traffic when the students are moving to the examination place. Yes, you may be surprised. On the day of the Suneung, South Korean high school seniors show up early. However, they may very well be escorted by police officers if they arrive late for the exam. The lucky ones who manage to get a very high score pass the Suneung, which opens the doors to universities. But of course, every success has a price because to pass the Suneung, South Korean students have to make huge efforts that start at the age of 13. Indeed, it requires them to study about 12 to 16 hours a day, which excludes any kind of leisure. This is not to mention the expensive cost of the courses they have to take in the hagwons, this extremely expensive private school network they have to attend in addition to their regular schools. But all the money spent and all the years of effort are forgotten as soon as the Suneung is in their pocket. Once this is achieved, students will see themselves graduating from one of the 3 prestigious universities in South Korea with their dream degree and seeing a lot of opportunities open up for them. South Korean students have made it a habit to drink latte in order to stay up and continue studying in the evenings, especially during the exam period. But since September 2018, Coffee has become banned in schools in South Korea for both students and teachers. No more coffee in cafeterias or vending machines installed in schools. This ban is a measure that was taken by the Korean Ministry of Food and Drug Safety in order to limit the consumption of caffeine among teenagers and thus avoid them to stay at work all night. As a reminder, energy drinks, which are also rich in caffeine, had already been banned in 2013. Faced with this ban, students and teachers, especially those who are addicted to coffee, have no choice but to buy a good coffee outside their school, which they can sip at their ease. This will allow them to indulge themselves, but also to have a good dose of caffeine that will keep them awake for a good length of time during the exam period. But on the other hand, they may face some health problems, such as heart problems or nausea, or sleep disorders, as it has already been clarified by the Korean Ministry of Food and Drug Safety. But this does not seem to worry these people that much, as well as all other South Koreans who, a few years ago, were still considered the biggest coffee consumers in Asia. However, it can be said that with the ban on coffee in schools, some students and teachers have become a little less addicted to coffee. In South Korea, parents send their children to school with the expectation that their toddlers can learn everything from an early age and be strong in almost every subject, including English, the second language spoken in Korea. But since 2018, these parents have been facing a somewhat unpleasant situation as the Ministry of Education has banned the teaching of English for first and second graders, deeming that learning English is stressful at this early age. As a result of this decision, which was widely controversial and strongly opposed by many individuals and community members, many parents decided to enroll their children in private and international schools. This allowed them to see their children's English level improve, but in return, they had to pay more money, unlike those who could not afford it, which further strengthened the competitiveness and widened the gap between them and the poor families. Because in South Korea, without money, there is no sufficient education, unfortunately. But it must be said that although this situation may seem awkward, it doesn't matter to these parents, as long as their children master English and reach the desirable level. However, since the introduction of this measure by the Ministry of Education, many South Korean parents have been pointing fingers at their country's education system. In South Korea, when a student or teacher is in school, he or she may feel the need to go to the bathroom. This is normal. However, if he goes to the toilet, he will not find any toilet paper. This is strange. In South Korean schools, especially public schools, there is no toilet paper in the toilets. But that's no problem. Teachers and students have a roll of toilet paper in their classroom. They can then cut some of it and take it with them if they need it. That's it. They'll have the right stuff when they need it. But of course, this means that they should never forget to take toilet paper in sufficient quantity, of course. Or at least they should always make sure they have tissues with them when they feel like relieving themselves. And it can be embarrassing, especially if they have to walk past everyone with a roll in their hand. But in the long run, it won't matter, because once they're relieved, they'll go back to their class and continue with their lesson, forgetting all about it. Because of the lack of toilet paper, the toilets in South Korean public schools have been called the worst in the world, and the students and teachers in these schools have become really pitiful. South Korean teachers have always been known for their respect and discipline. Indeed, they like to be respected, and above all, they always want their students to behave well in class. However, the opposite can happen, which is normal as in any other school in the world. But for South Korean teachers, the solution used to be to give unruly students a physical punishment. Slaps, sticks, everything was good for these teachers to stop the noise in class and to control the student who then became docile and did not dare to repeat his or her stupidity for fear of being punished again. However, because of this, and because some of them went too far in their way of punishing their students, South Korean teachers have provoked the anger of many people, especially after the broadcasting of a video showing a teacher hitting his student in front of his classmates. Also, their reputation and image has been tarnished internationally. All of this led the South Korean government to ban corporal punishment in schools in November 2010. South Korean students can no longer be hit by their teachers, which seems very unfortunate for them because corporal punishment is for them a kind of educational tradition in South Korea and the best way to control a class. And then, much to their regret, it turned out that discipline has weakened somewhat since the ban came into effect. However, these teachers may well turn to other means to ensure classroom discipline, such as forcing a student to stand for a long time or do push-ups. This has finally helped these teachers burnish their image and shed their reputation of being a bit too strict. You have just discovered what the school and the educational system in South Korea looks like. So, what do you think about all these rules you just saw? Leave us your answers and impressions in the comments. And as always, Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.